When I found out that my parents are going to use my engagement budget to throw a retirement party for my dad's golf buddy, my aunt whispered, "You always were the placeholder, daughter." So I took the venue, sent fake invites, and watched their shame go viral. "You always were the placeholder, daughter," my Aunt Beverly whispered to me, her voice barely audible over the clink of her wine glass. I had called her that night because I needed someone who knew the truth. Someone who'd seen it all from the outside, without the rose-colored lens of obligation. The phrase came out of her mouth so naturally it felt rehearsed, like she'd said it 100 times before, just never to my face. The phrase haunted me for days. "I'm Myra. I'm 28. I live in Charleston now, but I grew up on Hilton Head Island, which may sound idyllic, coastal breezes, white beaches, old money charm, but I always felt like a visitor in my own house. My parents, Gerald and Rowena, were older when they had me. I was surprised. Not unwanted, per se, but certainly unplanned. Their life was already full: golf, bridge nights, yacht club luncheons, and a rotating cast of indistinguishable friends who all wore salmon-colored shorts. They didn't hit me, they didn't scream, they didn't drink excessively. They just ignored me in the most elegant way possible, like I was a rental they never really got around to decorating. I moved to New York at 18. I got into NYU on scholarship and never looked back. I only came home for obligatory holidays and rare birthdays. They never visited. They sent Christmas cards with other people's children on them, godchildren, friends' kids, neighbors. My photos were absent. Still, when I got engaged to Noel, my partner of 4 years, I felt a flicker of hope. Noel is gentle and observant. He was the first person to notice how I'd flinch slightly when someone complimented me, like I didn't know how to receive love. We wanted a small engagement party. I had my eye on the Wisteria House, a charming vineyard estate just outside Charleston. It wasn't grand, just intimate and warm. When I told my parents, they agreed to pay for it. I was stunned. I even cried a little, thinking maybe this was them finally showing up. That optimism lasted 2 weeks. I drove down to Hilton Head one weekend to drop off the signed vendor contracts. I had no idea what I was walking into. I arrived mid-afternoon, hoping to catch them before their usual 5 p.m. cocktails. As I stepped into the house, I heard laughter from the kitchen and paused by the hallway when I heard my name. "I'm just saying," Rowena said. "We've known Alton for 30 years. He's basically family. It would be so much more meaningful to throw the party for him." Gerald laughed. "It's not like Myra's engagement party is some grand affair. She probably just wants the photos for Instagram. Let's just tell her the venue fell through." I couldn't move. I was stuck in that hallway with my heart hammering, the signed vendor folder still clutched in my hands. "Besides," Rowena continued, "Alton's done more for this family than she has. He introduced you to your firm, remember? She'll understand. She always does." I turned around and left without saying a word. The folder sat on the passenger seat of my car, as unread as I felt. I didn't call Noel right away. I drove back to Charleston in silence. I didn't even cry. There was this cold, expanding hollowness in my chest, like something long decayed had finally fallen apart. Noel found me that night sitting on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, still holding the folder. "They gave the money to throw a party for Alton," I said. "They were going to lie to me." He didn't say anything at first. He just reached over and placed his hand on mine. "What are you going to do?" he asked. That was when I called Aunt Beverly. Beverly was Rowena's younger sister. They hadn't spoken in almost a decade. She married a tattoo artist, opened a bookstore cafe in Asheville, and refused to go to country club functions. My mom used to refer to her as the cautionary tale. Beverly, unlike my parents, had always liked me. She sent handwritten birthday cards. She once sent me a care package during finals that included nothing but chocolate, socks, and pepper spray. When I told her what happened, she sighed. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "you always were the placeholder, daughter." I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. The truth of it was so raw, so unfiltered, it stripped everything bare. That's when I knew I couldn't just let this go. Not this time. I didn't cancel the venue. Instead, I made a new plan. I still had the Wisteria House reserved for that date. My parents were clearly no longer interested in it, so I decided to repurpose it. I didn't need their money anymore. I had saved enough and had help from Beverly and Noel. Together, we created a fake retirement party. We designed digital invites that looked professional and elaborate. We made it sound like a charity gala and claimed that Alton's Golf Legacy Fund would benefit local youth programs, entirely fictional, of course. We sent the invites to everyone in my parents' social circle. Their golf club, wine club, pickleball league, neighborhood group chat. It took days to compile the list, but it was worth it. The website included RSVP instructions, a fake itinerary, and even a link to a donate page that redirected to a blank screen with the message, "Why are you giving money to a stranger's party?" Then I had cardboard cutouts made. Life-sized versions of Alton, some flattering, most not. I commissioned an artist friend to create a caricature of him swinging a golf club while holding a cocktail and wearing a sash that said "Terrific Retirement." Balloons, banners, even fake gift bags, it all looked absurd and real at the same time. And the best part? The highlight of the evening would be a video montage. A compilation of every dismissive, backhanded, or outright cold thing my parents had ever said about me, gleaned from old videos, voicemails, even that awful kitchen recording I'd accidentally caught. The last slide would read, "You always were the placeholder, daughter." Aunt Beverly, I sat in a rental car across from the Wisteria house on the night of the party. Beverly was in the passenger seat with a flask. Noel was in the back, holding his phone to film everything from a safe distance. People began arriving right on time. Well-dressed, smiling, holding envelopes and gift bags. I recognized some from old family parties, others from golf events my parents dragged me to. Most were confused when they saw the displays inside. But confusion turned into curiosity, then concern. When the video started playing, they gathered in clusters. Some laughed, others gasped. A few looked genuinely upset. My parents arrived 30 minutes late. They walked in expecting to be welcomed, maybe even applauded for their generosity. Instead, they walked into the middle of the video, right at the part where Rowena said, "She probably just wants the photos for Instagram." Their faces went pale. Gerald reached for the remote. Someone stopped him, and someone else filmed it. Within 12 hours, the video hit 250,000 views. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. My phone had blown up overnight. Dozens of missed calls, texts, a barrage of notifications. My cousin Melina, who I hadn't seen since my college graduation, had sent me a voice memo that began with laughter and ended with, "You broke the island." Videos from the night were everywhere. One had captured Gerald swatting at the projection screen in a frantic attempt to shut it off. Another showed Rowena clutching her pearls like a bad theater actress, whispering, "This is slander," to no one in particular. Someone had uploaded a full walkthrough of the party. The cutouts, the fake trophies labeled "Most Overrated Golfer," the wine labels with photoshopped pictures of Alton's face, everything. It was a social media funeral for their dignity. Their little corner of the retirement social world, the one they'd cultivated so carefully with perfectly polished image control, was in flames. There were comments like, "This is what happens when you forget your own child exists," and "Who even is Alton?" For a brief moment, I felt powerful. But beneath that, there was something heavier. A hollow ache. Like I had finally screamed after holding my breath for 28 years, and the air still didn't feel clean. I didn't post anything myself. I didn't defend what I'd done, and I didn't apologize either. I let the event speak for itself. Beverly called it performance justice. Noel just called it long overdue. It didn't take long before the outreach began. First was an email from Rowena. Subject, "What have you done? Myra, we are appalled, mortified. This was cruel, calculated, and completely beneath you. You embarrassed us in front of our closest friends and colleagues. Your father is devastated. Please understand you've left us no choice, but to step back and reflect on whether we can continue to have a relationship with someone who would do this to us." Mother, I read it once, closed my laptop, and went to make coffee. I didn't reply. The second message came via a mutual friend, Trish Barlow, a woman who had always treated me like a ghost at their functions, but who now apparently felt the need to mediate. "Myra, I know it must have hurt when you found out about the party, but don't you think you overreacted a bit? Your parents are older, they come from a different time. This isn't how we solve problems." That message did get a reply. "Trish, with all due respect, my parents didn't come from a different time. They came from a different mindset, a self-centered one, and I'm done pretending I'm okay with that." That was it. Noel kept checking in. He was careful not to push, but I could tell he was watching me closely, worried about the emotional aftermath. I think he expected me to spiral. I didn't, not this time. Instead, I cleaned my apartment, top to bottom. I rearranged the bookshelves, donated old clothes, took long walks along the Battery, and made dinner every night. It was mundane, grounding, exactly what I needed. Meanwhile, the fallout continued on Hilton Head. Beverly, who had reshared one of the viral videos with the caption, "Some daughters aren't built to be silenced," became a kind of folk hero. People started calling her bookstore asking if she sold placeholder daughter merch. She didn't, but a friend of hers started making mugs that said, "Not just a placeholder," and donated the proceeds to a local shelter. I stayed quiet through it all. My parents, I later learned, canceled their next 5 social events. Gerald apparently stopped going to the club for 2 weeks. Rowena took a social media break, which Beverly said was code for furious and hiding. They didn't know what to do with the narrative being out of their control for once. And Alton, the man at the center of it all, he sent me a letter, not an email. A real, handwritten letter on thick stationery. "Myra, I had no idea. Truly. If I had known they were taking something from you for me, I'd have shut it down immediately. That night was insane, and yes, a bit hilarious in hindsight, but I want you to know I never wanted to be part of hurting you. Your parents, well, you know them. I hope you find peace. And if it means anything, I think you're one hell of a storyteller. Regards, Alton Chambers." That was the most surprising part of all. He wasn't offended. If anything, he seemed like someone who had just realized the depth of dysfunction he'd accidentally enabled. And while I didn't fully forgive him, he was, after all, the beneficiary of my erasure. I appreciated the acknowledgement. In the weeks that followed, I started journaling everything. Every memory that resurfaced. Every moment I'd shrugged off over the years. Like the time I got a full ride to NYU and Rowena asked if I could defer a year so they could take their annual, off-season Europe trip. Or when I called home in tears after a breakup and Gerald handed the phone to the housekeeper because he wasn't good with girl emotions. All of it. I wrote it down, not to hold a grudge, but to make sense of it. I had spent most of my life being the good daughter, the compliant one, the quiet observer. I'd kept my head down and stayed polite. And still, I was disposable. Writing made me realize just how deep the damage had gone. Beverly was the only one who seemed to get it. She called every few days just to check in. "You okay?" she'd ask. "Getting there," I'd say. She always paused, then replied, "Good, just don't shrink back. You're taller than they ever let you be." One day, about a month after the event, I got a knock on the door. It was a courier with a pale blue envelope, no return address. Inside was a single card. On the front, "Sometimes love comes with conditions." Inside, "But not mine." Beverly, it wasn't flashy or dramatic, just simple, honest. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like someone really saw me. Over the next couple of months, the noise died down. The videos stopped circulating, or at least stopped being shared as actively. The golf club gossip cooled. People found new things to talk about. But the cracks in my parents' facade never fully disappeared. And that was the most satisfying part of it, not the brief humiliation, but the permanence of the doubt now planted in their perfect social circle. They couldn't fix it with a donation. They couldn't wine and cheese their way out of it. People remembered. But me, I was doing better. Healing wasn't a straight line, but I was finally carving out space that felt like mine. Noelle and I talked more openly about everything, including what kind of future we wanted. A real one, built without permission or performance. Then one afternoon in early spring, I got a call from a Charleston-based wedding magazine. I assumed it was a spam call at first, until the woman on the line introduced herself as an editor. "I heard about the, creative party you put together, through a friend who attended. Would you be interested in being interviewed for a feature about unconventional events and reclaiming personal milestones?" At first, I was tempted to decline. I wasn't looking for attention. But then I thought of every person, especially every daughter who'd been treated like a shadow. I said yes. The article went live 2 weeks later. The headline, "Placeholder no more. How one woman reclaimed her engagement from family betrayal." It wasn't sensationalized. The writer kept it honest, clean, and surprisingly thoughtful. She included a few quotes from me about emotional neglect, the illusion of obligation, and the power of boundaries. I didn't name my parents. I didn't have to. The story resonated. I got messages from strangers thanking me, women who'd been disinherited, people whose families had skipped their weddings but showed up for third cousins' baby showers, people who'd finally stopped asking themselves, was it just me? I began receiving requests to speak on small panels, mostly for women's groups or personal development seminars. I said yes to a few. At one event, a woman pulled me aside in tears and whispered, I didn't know we were allowed to fight back without becoming the villain. That stayed with me. I didn't intend to speak to my parents again. But 3 months after the article, Gerald reached out. It wasn't an email or a letter, it was a voicemail. Myra, it's your father. Your mother's been having a hard time with everything. We saw the article. I won't pretend we're proud of it, but we get it now. Or at least I do. I don't know, maybe you could call sometime. I played the message twice, then deleted it. Not because I hated him, but because I didn't want to be pulled back into the same orbit of guilt and forced reconciliation. Letting go wasn't about anger anymore, it was about peace. And peace didn't include renegotiating old contracts with people who never honored them to begin with. A week later, I did mail them something. It was a copy of the article. I highlighted the quote that said, "We don't owe unconditional loyalty to people who have shown us conditional love." And I wrote a single line at the bottom, "Thank you for funding the party. It was unforgettable." That was the last contact. Noelle and I got married that fall in Asheville. Not eloping, not hiding, just a small ceremony in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Aunt Beverly officiated. My dress wasn't expensive. My shoes were borrowed. We had no flower arch, no custom neon sign, no monogrammed napkins. But there was love, and laughter, and no sense of pretending. My vows included a line that made Noelle tear up. You were the first person who didn't ask me to shrink so they could stand taller. That night, around a fire pit, Beverly handed me a glass of red wine and nudged me with her shoulder. You did it, she said. I think I did, I replied. She smiled. You're not a placeholder anymore. I took a long sip, then looked up at the stars scattered like glitter across the night sky. No, I said. I'm the headline.